We're gonna talk about trying to make a living as a freelancer. Anybody who's tried to do that will know that we're going to talk about some difficult stuff. We're blessed today to have three great panelists. Charlie Moore has been the Metro editor of the Journal since 1997, which is a long time, I think. Brian Furlow has written for so many publications, I can't name them all, but he makes his living doing these incredibly in-depth public records analysis of key issues in the news that are always hard to sort of pry open and get at. It's just a wonderful font of information. And we're really blessed to have Laura Paskus, who I consider to be the best environmental writer in the West, and who's also her long list of magazines are almost too much for me to spit out, so I won't. But she's been making her living as a freelancer for a long time. So let me ask you guys the softball question. But it's a tough. Would you recommend to somebody the life of a freelance writer in this market? Because we're talking about now not only skills and gifts, but marketing.
I would say no. I would not recommend freelancing. I would especially not recommend freelancing coming right out of J school or undergraduate. I really think it's a great idea to go work for a newsroom or at least do an internship so that you get some on-the-job training kind of on somebody else's dime. So you have editors who are working with you, you have peers and colleagues who you can see how they navigate their stories and their lives. And I think it can be tempting in today's job market, which stinks. I'm so glad to see you guys here that you're willing to consider journalism as a career because the job market is scary. And so I think it's tempting to say, I'm going to break out and I'm going to freelance. And it's a hard thing to do. It's super rewarding. But it's a hard thing to do, especially if you don't have some basic newsroom experience.
Yeah, what you said. I realize I would rather see you guys branch out into freelancing than give up on journalism. But I would strongly encourage you to try to get newsroom experience. And it's something I wish I had done earlier in life than I did. Even maybe especially at a small community paper, like Traps paper in Espanola or one of the smaller community papers. Those can be great bootcamps. So,
can you all hear?
No, if you can speak up.
Freelance if you have to, but try to get some newsroom experience first. There's so much institutional knowledge you guys will benefit from working under editors directly that you don't get as a freelancer. I'm happy to talk about how to go about freelancing when you get there, but I would strongly encourage you to try to get into a newsroom first.
Yeah, I've never had the guts to even try. I mean, hats off to you guys. It's tough, and I've known quite a few over the years, and are people who are successful at it, obviously, but it's a long road. Yeah, I would echo what you said. You can get into a newsroom like Bob Traps or Martin Salazar, where you're just going to learn from some really talented, sharp, smart people. It's just a great place. Or any Sperling Meyer out there in Santa Rosa. He hasn't much of a staff, but he relies heavily on freelancers. You're just not going to find this many journalists out there. Those people right there.
The whole notion of freelancing really has some interesting components. One, there's a tremendous industrial component. I know a few people who made their livings, and they'll write a piece on dogs, let's say, and if they can't sell it about dogs, then we write the lead read about dogs and trains. And we can't sell that, but we about dogs and cars, and dogs and cats, and dogs and vets, and dogs and they're constantly training. They're not doing hard news reporting, they're not doing necessarily analysis, but they're marketing, they're industrial, this is a whole, this is a business aspect which I don't think anybody gets a handle on in school. Do you think? I mean, do you ever learn about running a business as a writer?
No, but I came to journalism from anthropology and archaeology, so I have no, like when I decided, okay, this is my second career, I'm going to go into journalism, I had to go work for somebody so that they could teach me what on earth journalism really was. But I think that is, since there are so many people who do make a living freelancing out of day school or when they decide to do journalism, there's so much that it's not just, interviewing techniques and ethics and how to write well and it's also marketing and accounting and...
But the piece that all three of you actually brought to it, which I think you just touched on, is having some expertise in something. And you've all developed, or came out of the field. I think that's informed probably all of the work, right? So, especially if you're going to be out there freelancing, you need to become an expert on something, or on a number of things.
Well said.
Counterintuitive. I think the assumption would be that you want to be as general, as broad as possible, so you can sell stories on anything. But to have the credibility coming into a newsroom as a freelancer, you need to have some expertise, competing with specialties.
On the other hand, too, we've had editors who probably we've established a relationship with, who know that if they have an idea that you're fit to do, they can go to you and you can do it. I think that's one of the most important things around is to have that I don't know if this is branding, but to have that reputation of being able to, if you need something done in a hurry, you can go to order and get it done. Now, how do you build that kind of reputation?
Slowly.
Slowly, yeah.
You guys all take a little bit.
When you're first going into freelancing, the key skill is querying succinctly. You putting together a 3-paragraph succinct query. That's your introduction to editors usually. Once you've worked with editors, you'll start to build the kind of relationship that you're talking about, and it will be liberating because then you're not spending 50% of your time pitching stories. Early on, it's hard to avoid it. You have to develop a reputation by sending those queries out every single morning, and it's not always easy. But the upside is that once you've developed some relationships with 4 or 5 different editors, you can start getting regular work. That's a sign. You don't even have to always discover the story, come up with the lead.
I'm sorry, you
I was just going to ask you to speak louder.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry, guys.
It's these bands that for some reason are like totally blocking out you guys.
It's hard to hear.
Well, I'm a known mumbler anyway. I apologize. So okay, let's say, how have you done it? You both are successful at it. I know you probably argue about that, but how have you gone about making a business? And how do you know if you use screens? I don't know if you guys do it with that.
My desk doesn't much.
Well, let me ask these guys then, just real quick. How have you built your business?
Well, for me, like I said, my background was anthropology and archaeology, and I used to work on these amazing projects where I would go and work with tribal elders, and we would go and visit these archaeological sites that were potentially going to be impacted, and I would get their stories and write up these reports, and it was amazing. And then these reports would go to the federal agency, and they would be dumped in a file cabinet somewhere. And none of these stories would ever be read. Nothing would ever happen. You know, the pipeline wouldn't be rerouted, or the dam wouldn't be built. And I was just like, this stinks. Like, this totally stinks. Here I have access to amazing people and wonderful stories and important things about this landscape that I really care about and love. So I kind of made the switch to journalism from there. And I got an internship at a small Western newspaper magazine that is focused on natural resources. And I did this internship, and I was 27, I think, when I did this internship. So I was like an old lady, and from among all the interns who were, in their early 20s. And I worked my butt off. I had 4 months, and basically this newspaper uses their interns as staff reporters. And so every story that I had ever wanted to tell in my career as an archaeologist, I basically just started looking into these issues, looking into dams and pipelines and impacts, and just totally worked my butt off during the course of that internship, and had planned to freelance. And that was like my big grand plan. I was going to freelance, and the publisher basically said to me, "Don't do that. You're too smart to be lost in the freelance. Like, you're going to fail, and you're never going to become a journalist." And so they ended up offering me a job, and I worked there as an editor for 4 or 5 years. And then I started freelancing. Once I had built those skills and made all these connections, and I was able to start working, with publications who were like, "Oh, you were an editor at High Country News. Sweet, we love High Country News. Oh, we've seen your stuff," because I had years and years of clips. And so I just started freelancing for more and more newspapers and magazines. And the thing, when you have a journalism job, I'm sure Charlie can attest to this, you don't work 40-hour weeks. Like, even when you work at a newspaper, you're still working God knows how many hours every week. But when you're a freelancer, you're always working. You're always looking for stories. You always wake up and think, "Oh, I should have emailed this editor with that story, and I should finish this." And so I think freelancing is just a lot of discipline and a lot of discipline.
Did being able to rely on Audubon lasers like that in news, did that make any difference to you?
It made some difference, but the biggest difference that making it into those magazines made for me was I got to work with really high caliber editors who I learned from and who always made my work better, who pushed me harder, who sometimes made me really mad and defensive, but who made my work so much better that the next story I pitched was better for their influence on my writing or whatever.
How did you do it?
So I also came out of a different kind of background. Biology. I came from a biology background, and I'm not sure, in truth, that I could have made a living, a comfortable living as a freelancer, had I not had that background, because it's allowed me to reach out to medical journals and technical journals that actually have bigger budgets than community newspapers. And I was familiar enough with the scientific literature from being a biology student and working in research labs that I was able to do some simple translation stories. Where, there's a new study comes out and editors need someone translated into an engaging vernacular English narrative for the general public. I've also been extremely lucky. I don't know how much of my early success was due to the volume of queries that I sent out. I could have papered my house with all the rejection letters. Now you frequently don't have the courtesy of a rejection letter. So I sent out a lot of queries, but I also was very lucky with the editors I did come across. When I was working at the Lobo as an undergrad, I sent a story query to Psychology Today's editor, who was then Hera Marana, and I got a phone call from her the day that she got the letter, and she liked the query. She was telling people this is how she'd be done, and that turned into a regular news reporting gig for a magazine and paid for a year of my college. And it was just dumb luck. I worked on a good day with a topic she liked, and it's been that way a lot. Because I was interested in investigative journalism and I had a medical reporting background, the confluence of that has created a niche, a specialization that there's not a lot of competition for. And so, when I approached a prestigious medical journal called The Lancet about doing news reporting with them, I was able to show them clips of the kind of work I had done looking at insurance regulation and that kind of stuff. And they were welcoming. They were happy to have someone who had invested the time in learning about healthcare policy and healthcare economics to be doing their journalism and their front piece for that.
What I'm hearing is that you guys have had successful careers because of your breadth of knowledge. You're coming at this whole business from a different angle. It's not just about writing, it's about what you're writing about, it's about how much you know, it's about how much you can learn. So when you hire somebody for a staff, you're not looking, you're looking for knowledge, right? You're looking for, the basic repertoire of skills, you can learn mighty fast. But go.
Well, actually, for staff, depends obviously on what position you're hiring for. There are specialty beats where you want to see some background in that area or whatnot. But newspapers, of course, are we're generalists, and so really it's more about, can you ask a decent question? Are you interested enough to ask a decent question? Are you curious? And does your previous work, your attitude, does that show me that you've got that innate curiosity about wanting to know about the world and, of course, sharing it? You can't keep our mouths shut. That's the business we're in, I guess.
And isn't that really almost an essential gift of writing a good query, or after a while you don't have to write them anymore, you can call people up and is that thing, that question. What is happening here? What's going on here? I think I got a handle on it. Would you be interested?
Because I worked as an editor and am a freelancer, so for the query letters I would send out now, I always include something at the top that's going to tell the editor in the first sentence, so that he or she knows, am I interested, am I not interested? It's got to be I feel like that first sentence or two has to be as great as you would want the first sentence of your story that goes into a magazine would be. So grab the editor's attention, explain why it's important, then sort of if he or she's still reading, you need to explain why this story is good for their audience, and also why you're the person to be telling the story, or your knowledge or access to sources, whatever. Because sometimes it will happen, the editor is interested and thinks, oh, great, I can assign this to my staff writer.
Yes.
I don't need to hire this freelancer to do it. So you really want to nail it, like why you are the only person who can tell that story.
Do you think that, you hear about authors in the 20s and 30s where they could build momentum in their career. They had one or two publishers, one or two magazines, and working. Is it harder to build momentum for a career now with all of the competition and all of the different voices? And if it is hard to build momentum, and how do you actually do it? How do you distinguish yourself from these tweets and blogs and on?
I'd go back to specializing being key to that.
Specialize.
Yeah, you got to specialize. You got to develop a beat, whether it's going to be partly the sources that you develop, it's going to be your familiarity with how an agency runs. If you're going to freelance, you need to seek out an agency. If you want to do government reporting, seek out an agency that's underreported. Everybody's interested in the PRC, but not that many people could afford two newspapers were able to send people up there to cover that agency. They certainly warranted more reporters than that. So get to know a subject or an agency, a government body, that's not getting as much attention as you think it should, and then convince the editors that you're the person to provide that coverage.
I would say too, if you're freelancing, at least this is from my perspective, like, you better love what you're writing about. Because it's like, oftentimes low paying or thankless, or you have to work so hard and you are just wondering, why am I doing this? If you do not totally love writing about what you're writing, and sometimes you have to write stuff that you don't care about to make a living, or write a story, but if you do not love what you are writing about, just don't even bother, because you'll be miserable. But you have
Or hate.
Right.
There's a rage to write too. If you get outraged when there's wrongdoing, then pursue that, do the investigative thing, uncover the abuse. But yeah, it has to be driven by passion. More than things else.
Yeah.
So the question always comes to me is, can you make a living writing? Or does writing open the door to other streams of income? Which I think is what we're talking about here. Now, we're not talking, obviously we're talking about expertise, skill and gifts and all that, but fundamentally too, we're talking about running a business that has multiple streams of income. Because you can't continue to do this if you can't make a living.
What I used to recommend to people is apparently now frowned upon, and I've seen it called self-plagiarism, but I used to suggest that you do something akin to self-syndication, where you have a story that you want to sell to a magazine, and I was a science writer, so I'd be writing about some body of research. And then I would go to each of the alumni magazines at all the universities where the leading researchers in that field work, and do a spotlight on their little piece of this body of work. And I would franchise in that way, so that every hour of learning about a given topic was going to yield more than a publication at one outlet.
I was going to ask, so you repurpose a lot of your research.
I'm afraid to repurpose interviews nowadays. I redo interviews because it's frowned upon. It seems like you guys and the editors don't like to see us borrow unused parts of an interview that we did for a previous story and repurpose it for a new story. So I don't do it anymore, but I wish I could.
I might take different parts of the story, like for instance, yesterday I was at the New Mexico Environment Department all day looking through giant boxes of records, and I was looking for something really specific for a story that I'm working on, but I found all this other stuff, and so they were like, through that I'll do that one specific story, but then there were all these other pieces of it that would be more appropriate for a different publication. So, same story, different aspects, different publications.
And never end an interview without asking your source what else you should be aware of, what else is going on. That's always my last question.
Well, that's a great question. That's so important. So, do you consider yourselves the same as brand?
I go back and forth on that because I do really specific, like Southwestern environmental reporting. And so, like, my personal website is southwestreporter.com because a bunch of Russians hijacked laurapaskus.com a few years ago. Yeah, I let the domain. Don't ever let your domain expire, even for a couple days, because they bought it and put a bunch of Viagra ads on. And then when I found out who had bought the domain and got in touch with them, they were like, "Give us $5,000 so you can have your domain back." And I was like, "No, I'm keeping the Viagra. I'll just get a new website." So anyway, so Viagra and Southwestern environmental reporting are my brands. So I kind of have done that just because I'm really specific. Like, my reporting is really specific. But I don't know. I feel like instead of branding yourself, I just feel like the most important things that you can do to really keep having work coming in and working with new editors and having editors coming back to you is being respectable, to have an online presence that is respectful. It can be fun, it can be, but it ought to be respectable and also just being really reliable. When your editor assigns you something, get it to them on time or before. If, don't just the better work the good work you do speaks so much more versus branding yourself. I know a woman who has very successfully branded herself. Like maybe 10 years ago, she even had like a little nickname kind of for herself, and her website and all her stuff is branded with this sort of nickname that she gave herself. And 10 years later, I'm like, it seems kind of weird on a 10-year-older lady now. So I don't know. I think branding yourself as someone who's respectful and responsible and responsive and reliable is the best thing you can do.
I hate the term branding. If by branding you're talking about some of the stuff that was discussed in previous panels with promoting your work using social media to get it to the right audience, I think of branding as an audience or retail thing more than with editors. And what Laura said about being reliable, that's the number one thing. You've got to be reliable. If you have to stay up 20 hours, I've done 20-hour days. If you have to do that rather than blow a deadline, you do it. Because you're going to impact a lot of people down the stream, and you're going to get a reputation for being unreliable. So be truthful, be accurate, be reliable, be someone they can rely on to get the story done on time and correctly. And don't get captured. I think that you're going to probably, if you're in freelancing, you're probably going to come across situations where you get job offers or consultancy offers. This is certainly the case if you're a medical journalist and you're trying to make it past the gauntlet of pharmaceutical reps when you get to the press office at a cancer conference. There's a lot of ethical red lines that you just don't want to even go near. I don't accept, when I'm at a cancer conference, I don't accept someone will offer me a dinner or a beer or want to buy me coffee. I don't even sit down with those pharma guys. If they want to talk to me, it's on the record and it's where I can ask them to see the data they're talking about. I don't want to be sold like a doctor giving a pharma rep visit.
Huh. So
And I've seen it happen in other domains where, education reporters have been offered jobs as PIOs and that kind of thing. Those are not conversations you want to have.
now what you want to go with communications, whatever that is. So, Charlie, you deal with a job pool, right, a market of which one? You compete, you probably want to compete with a whole ocean of other writers. Is there a similarity? I mean, are you looking for the kind of people that they are?
Sure. You want the best journalists you can get. And, it's the catch-22 of experience, on our end. And, I'm not going to look at you if you don't have experience, so where are you going to get that experience? Internships, the Daily Globo, K1M, more internships. That's the first place you start. You need clips, you need published clips. Or that's what we used to call them, of course. Published on a website, whatever. Not just your own. And again, what we talked about earlier, which is getting us started at a really good quality newspaper. If you're talking about newspaper work, traditional journalism work, that's kind of where it's at. Sometimes you get lucky. Pat Long started with us last year on an internship. He did really well, and he's a staff writer now. And he's doing really, really well. He's got the instincts, and he's out there doing it. So.
Yeah, he did a great job as many others. Well, so I'm trying to get a little bit below this curious problem. I've been trying to be a freelancer, for 40 years, almost, along with holding down other jobs. never freelancing is the only way. You have other jobs too, right?
I've done both. I've done strictly freelance, and then I've freelanced and had like a regular editing gig where I had a regular paycheck coming in, and now I'm back to only freelancing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, like, not to say like, but like I think a lot of people go and freelance and they have the luxury of having a spouse who has a full-time job with benefits, or they have a big savings account, I guess. But and I always felt like somebody like me couldn't make it freelancing because I don't have a savings account and I don't have a spouse and I'm a single mom, and I can totally make a living freelancing, and it's because I totally work my butt off every single day. So I think like if you work hard, anybody can do it. And really, if I can make a living and support a child, anybody can do it. So.
Yeah, I agree. John Fleck was saying before in the audience, he said if you want to do well, I don't know that he's talking about freelancing specifically, but he said the key to a life in journalism is marrying well. It's increasingly true. But, or just taking a vow of poverty at times, because when you're freelancing, you're going to do very well some years, and there are going to be lean years, and you need to prepare for the lean years. The last 2 years, I don't know how much I should reveal, but my income varied by 50% from one year to the next. And a lot of that, though, has to do with where you choose to put your focus. You're going to follow your heart, and you're going to be writing for a small daily or a small weekly even, and doing the kind of journalism that is spiritually rewarding. But you also need to pay the rent, so you have to balance that with the technical writing. And I know that there's a lot of bias in J School. There used to be against trade journals, medical journals, technical journals. But that's another stream of revenue for freelancers, and it's a good way to learn expertise. Even if you don't go into the trades, I would encourage you to develop sources of the trades. If you guys are covering local government and need to know about construction schemes, illegal activity that might be going on with public construction, you could do worse than to talk to somebody at a contractor's journal who's familiar with who the players are.
So basically, though, is this accurate that, of course, there isn't journalism school anymore, right? Although apparently no one has anything to do with it. But there's an enormous difference from being an employee to being a small business owner. And when you are a freelancer, you are a small business owner. And you're oftentimes dealing with, at least I found in my if you're dealing with marginally exploitative editor, other businesses who don't want to look at you as a legitimate subcontractor, which you are, but who want to take as much as they can get, including your information, without paying for it. How do you make the transition from being an employee, or from a student, to being an employee, to being a small business operator who's running on idealism, on love of the craft, on curiosity, on joy of the business? That seems like a huge transition, but it's very real, I would think. I know this. I had to learn about banking, I had to learn about investment, I had to learn about accounting, I had to learn about all those things that nobody ever taught anybody how the world works in college. You don't learn how the world works. I'm ranting here, but how did you make that transition?
I made that transition about 5 months ago. When you care about, like I was saying earlier, that a lot of my investigative stuff is driven by outrage, and it is. And I don't let that affect my objectivity, but it does drive my willingness to go through a stack of expense reports that day to find the evidence of the wrongdoing that we suspect is going on. That passion can very easily be exploited and is by editors, because they know that you care so much that you're just looking for that outlet so you can get this bit of truth out to the public, that you'll do it on a shoe dime, or on a shoe dime. And it was colleagues who pointed out to me that if you martyr yourself, if you don't value your employment, if you're willing to work, when you do the division and you see what the hours you're putting in compared to the paycheck you're getting means you're working for minimum wage, then you're not doing the field any good either. You're hurting your colleagues as well as allowing yourself to be exploited. So don't be a martyr. This is what I'm saying.
That's so true. 5 minutes, okay. We have 5 minutes again. So, would you wrap on about that just a bit?
Yeah, I'm bad because there are certain things that I am so fired up about that I will write for a publication that does not pay what I deserve. But I feel like the impact that those pieces have is worth my effort. And so what I actually sort of do is I'll take, whereas with that one particular job and I know that it'll have impact, I'll take that lower pay and that work is sort of subsidized by other work that I do that I might not be as passionate about, but I wouldn't work for the lower. So it's sort of like this balancing act of making sure that I can pay my rent and eat and do all those things.
But doing that low pay work, if it's the right place and the right story, it builds your reputation as well.
I guess so. I'm not sure. I mean, because I think what Bryant said is really important. Like, you should not be a martyr.
Should not be.
But for me, like, that one thing is like, it's a great outlet, and like, it's like I'm addicted to it. I can't give it up, even though it'll pay like my phone bill plus my internet bill for the month to do that one piece. So, but don't work for free. Don't ever work for free, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Even if somebody says like, oh, you'll get your first clip or whatever, don't ever work for free because it screws everybody else. And it doesn't work for you in the long run, and it impacts all your colleagues. Don't ever work for free.
I wanted to be sure that we mentioned contracts.
Yes.
I don't know, is there any, when people come to you, you just have a boilerplate contract they have to take or leave, right? A lot of magazines and smaller newspapers, you can negotiate the contract. When they send you a boilerplate, you can say, I would like a kill fee to protect me in case you decide not to run my story when I've invested all this time. You can argue that you should be paid upon acceptance of the story instead of upon publication of the story. Those are ways to keep the revenue coming too. And royalties don't even get discussed anymore for freelancers. But 20 years ago, if New Scientist magazine sold my feature article to 5 or 6 different science magazines around the world in different languages, you could expect to see a percentage of that revenue come back to you. And now it's pretty much up to you guys as freelancers to do your own self-syndication, being careful about the changing ethical landscape there.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.